Welcome back everyone to the Vixen Victory channel. In this video we'll be taking a look at the must-pull characters you should get or build before Nod Krai releases. This list contains characters that, in my opinion, should be pulled if they appear on a future banner before or during the early stages of Nod Krai. Let me know if you guys liked the video down below by liking and subscribing, and also let me know what you think of the characters that should be must-pull characters. Now, onto the video. So the first character I want to talk about is going to be Veressa. Veressa is a very interesting character because I think that overall as a character, with the idea of looking at characters that you should have before Nod Krai approaches, I think that having her, even though we are going to a cryo region, having some of the other elements kind of stuck down that maybe don't necessarily have to do too much with the cryo element is a very good idea. So having a character like her kind of solidifies that need of the other Electro idea of kind of characters needed. She's also a very recent character and one that also does exceptionally well with the Night Soul that has to be done with a lot of different enemies. Natlan has thrown a lot of different things at us and Night Soul has been one of them. And with that has come with a lot of challenges with constant need for a lot of extra things, with a lot of extra characters, with a lot of extra elements, and a lot of attacking enemies with Night Soul mechanics. With that, obviously, with a character like her and even some of her supports like Yelan and both of her types of teams, whether it's Overload or if it's her regular traditional team with just straight Electro, all that a Night Soul really does help make sure that you're covering your bases with the Night Soul mechanics while also making sure you're getting a butt ton of damage out for your teams. And honestly, with that, I think that's an exceptional way to actually make her an exceptionally good character for this list for the quote-unquote must pulls when we look into Nod Krai. Also, I think that with her being a strong character with a lot of good supports and easy building, there's just no reason why you shouldn't be pulling her as your specific Electro DPS if you already don't have one. The next character I want to throw in here is going to be another DPS, and another element that might not have too much to do with Cryo, and that is going to be Navia. Now Navia, I absolutely have a lot of fun with. I got her on a first rerun with her own weapon, and she's super fun. She hits like a truck, and honestly is very easy to build. The building itself can be here and there a little bit tough, but at the end of the day, really, a lot of people are going to be throwing Mare Chassé on her, even her personal set. She just works well with a lot of different claymores, she works well with a lot of different characters. She wants at least one other Geo character in her team for the Geo Resonance for more damage, but she also wants to work, unlike other Geo characters, she wants to work with a lot of other characters of the core 4, which allows and opens up for characters like Furina, Yelan, some of the other characters in this tier list, and then also, characters that are going to be buffing, a character like Yansan, who we just talked about, characters like Xingqiu, that also are maybe 4 stars. Characters like Bennett as well. She wants the attack buffs, and that helps even more to make sure that she is an extremely strong unit to go after. A very good DPS, and make sure that you don't really have to worry about Geo really a lot anymore if you have her. Her infusion, her burst, allow for constant Geo application, so if there's a Wolf Lord or anything like that, easily taken care of with her. Then throw another support in there. Obviously you have the Geo element, whether that be a free 4-star that you might have as well, that you already got from Gacha or something, which I guess wouldn't be free at that point, but still very good on that idea with the different characters that you'd be running. So as a very strong DPS, she throws herself in the next place in our list. Now the next character after this, we are switching the gears a little bit, going to another character named Kazuha. Now, I know that Kazuha has been quote-unquote power crept by someone like Xilonen, who, don't worry, is also quote-unquote going to be on the list as well. Also really just shows himself as a really strong character. I think that overall with him as a good character, grouping capabilities can be on par with the healing that you might have with Xilonen. Now, thankfully with Xilonen, you kind of have a 2-in-1 with her as a buffer and a healer, which once again, we'll get into more when we get to her as a character in the future. But right now with Kazuha, I don't think that a lot of people realize how strong he still is. And if they do, well, that's how you know that those people are getting ready for the future content in the game. A lot of more characters are or a lot more enemies are probably gonna show a lot of grouping capabilities, and obviously different abyss are always gonna have that idea of waves of enemies that are gonna constantly come at you. And certain ultimates are not always going to be super AoE based and have a very large hitting range like someone like Mavuika that we have gotten currently. So by having characters that are like this that can still be extremely strong, but also help with grouping, helps even more with the idea of making sure that constant enemies are being pulled together to make sure your big damage hits are always hitting the enemies you want to hit. Also, with his easy to build high EM playstyle, with also the idea of being an extremely good buffer, very easy to build, and very easy to play, while also having a nice grouping capability, which helps you not have to focus on you being super technical with your playstyle, makes it even easier for a lot of players as well, earns him another spot in the must pull category before Nod Krai. After this, we have someone like Arlecchino. Now, going back to the DPSs, I absolutely love Arlecchino. And, well, yes, the white hair and the red eyes definitely have a little bit to do with it. I definitely do think that overall, Arlecchino has just been an exceptionally good character for a pretty long time. Now, we have only probably had her out for over a year, but I still do think that this shows a lot of promise for her future endeavors as a character. Now, she is the most recent and best version of maybe some of the best things we had with Pyro DPS. The issues that she showed was probably maybe how difficult her kit is to run, and maybe possibly actually correctly building her with kind of the stats that are needed for her. That being said, I think that there's a lot of good things that can come from Arlecchino. Getting her first few constellations shows a lot of strength with her as a character, putting her with an overload team or even some vaporized teams and melt teams is very easy with 4-star supports, making her a 4-star friendly character with at least a support idea. Once again, she does take a little bit more investment, she's a little hard to learn, but once you get the hang of both of those things, or at least make sure that her build is specifically built well, she just goes absolutely insane, and it doesn't matter the supports at that point, she can solo a lot of content if she so desires. Outside of that, she works in a lot of other teams as well. You could still put her in a mono pyro team, which I've done myself multiple times, and it shows very good damage numbers. Same thing with the overload team, which is very free to play friendly, and even once again, you don't have to have characters like Yelan or whatever to kind of make the vaporized team out exceptional. You can use characters like Xingqiu and a character like Bennett and Sucrose and still make an extremely good free to play team, but also show a lot of strength behind Arlecchino just because of how strong she is. Beyond that, a character who we haven't talked about yet, another support. Now, Arlecchino and this character, in my opinion, kind of both hold a kind of similar fair share, but I think this character is a little bit beyond Arlecchino purely because we might have another character of the same element of Arlecchino in the future and a similar idea of how the character works. So this character though, the next one we have is Yelan. Yelan is a very good character. She works in so many different teams, and even though she is what you would call a 5-star Xingqiu, she still really holds a lot of value. The high amount of damage that she can output beyond Xingqiu, while also still having a very good amount of damage buffing that she gets from her burst and a passive talent, you still have a very good amount of damage and buffing capabilities. Also, really with her as a character, you don't really have to worry about crit, just a lot of ER and also a lot of HP make her a very easy to use character when you're putting her together with certain teams. Once again, she can work with characters outside of her own area where you might only think of her as she is a vaporized unit. She can work with, very similar to Xingqiu, other teams that have nothing to do with the idea of just straight reaction damage. Things like Bloom, for instance, by throwing her with some of the characters that are focused on that idea. And even better, she works with characters that want to do a lot of normal attacks to make sure that they're getting Hyper Bloom out. And we're talking about you, Sino, and we're also talking about you, Al-Haytham. Also, once again, with the Vaporize idea and even the Freeze teams as well, she still has shown some pretty good capabilities there. And even with a character like Skirk coming out wanting to do that idea, she still shows herself as some of the best supports, and usually one of the best supports that you can use with Skirk. Now, I think that Shenhe probably holds a little bit more prowess right now as a better unit, but that doesn't mean that you can't use this character. I think Yelan shows a lot of good capabilities for Freeze teams, especially because of Escoffier coming out, and Hydro and Cryo teams are very happy because of it. Once again, Pyro and kind of that idea still holds a lot of prowess as well, and she just is very good because of the damage she puts out, with also that little bit of buff that she gets from that passive talent. Another Hydro character on the ranks here is going to be Neuvillette, another DPS, which is obviously not too much to say here, but obviously Neuvillette has shown himself to be very good for even longer period of time than Arlecchino, for instance. I mean, honestly, just him as a character, he's very easy to kind of build and play, just high HP, high crit, pair him with Furina, who most people are probably going to have anyways, and he just goes insane. And obviously you have your twirl and whirl, your spin to win mechanic as well, so there always allows a little bit of fun with him as a character. Plus, obviously, man, does he have some good voice lines. But I think overall as a character, he shows once again a lot of strength to just hold out in the long run. Now, once again, I think that the characters that have come out in the previous little bit, characters like Scofier, have shown they want, a cryo DPS or whatever to increase their damage for cryo. At the same time, actually, I've had a lot of fun with using him as a freeze DPS, quote unquote, by having him just do a bunch of personal hydro damage and then Escoffier off field doing the damage that she does. Pairing them with another cryo character and Furina, it just goes absolutely insane. Neuvillette still works with even some of the other supports, and even outside of Furina can still be very, very strong, very similar to how Arlecchino is, but he's just that much easier to use and to build. Which is why, once again, he earns himself another spot on the ranking of the characters for must pulls before Nod Krai. Now, coming in third place, we have a character for a DPS role, which we kind of hinted at earlier with Arlecchino, and that character is going to be Mavuika. Mavuika is just absolutely insane. No matter what you do with her, how you pair her with, she just does insane amounts of damage. Now keep in mind also, the reason why Mavuika is strong is for a multitude of reasons. When she first came out, a lot of people were wondering how they were going to mix a character to be a DPS, and somehow also a sub DPS and support. I mean, think about it. You've got a DPS that does the most damage in the game, but at the same time, they can just be the sub DPS of a team doing off-field application, helping characters like Kanish get a lot of burning out, helping other characters with Vaporize, like another character in her roster, which is Mualani. You're just seeing a lot of help here. Never mind also helping other overload teams, considering that has also come up ever since Shevers has been out. There's just been so much helpfulness really with her as a character to help different teams and different playstyles. And honestly, I'm so happy that I just don't have to ever think about Xiangling again and ever use her again once more. Also, there's just another thing. Even though she's a DPS, where some characters with DPSs you have to worry about energy recharge, you don't have to worry about energy with her at all. The only probably negative thing about her is that you have to pair her with a lot of Night Soul characters. And really probably only one. If you have Xilonen in the team, you'd never have to worry about it ever again. If you have more than Xilonen, you're never worrying about anything and you don't even probably know what Night Soul is because of just how easy those teams kind of run. If you have probably no Night Soul characters, you're probably seeing a lot more difficulty getting her burst back consistently, but at this point, she's most likely probably a support character, helping out the DPS with either application or popping her burst and then instantaneously swapping to the DPS to give them a buff as well. Similar to what Yelan does, but in the reverse. So as Yelan pops her burst, a character on field is going to get a little bit more damage over time and get more and more damage, and it's going to be increasing. Mavuika works on the opposite end. She's slowly going to be taking away her damage buff, I believe it starts at 50%, and slowly goes away. Once her burst is started or finished, then you can immediately swap to the DPS. You start with a 50% buff, and over time it slowly decreases. Now with this, I still do think that she is a very good character. The amount of teams that she runs with, how easy she is to build, how easy she is to use, and obviously just the amount of teams that you can run with and supportive options that she can do, it just goes to show why she is such a very good character. Now, here comes the next two. Now, I had a lot of struggle kind of placing the next two characters, and I kind of thought about it a very, very long period of time. I think the next character has to be Xilonen. Xilonen is a very, very good character. As we just talked about, she's a very good character for a lot of Night Soul characters. Obviously, the Night Soul burst mechanic obviously helps by triggering those extra passes for the Natlan characters, the Night Soul characters, whatever you want to call them. Those characters are very good, gonna have some actually pretty good credibility with that Night Soul burst mechanic. And with Xilonen being the quote-unquote power creep of Kazuha, being a healer, being a Geo character, but still also having a resistance shred in her personal kit, while also following a personal set, 4-piece artifact set that focuses in actually helping the character get more damage bonus. She's basically just a Geo Kazuha that can heal. Now, you don't have the option and the capabilities to actually group characters, which is the opposite of what obviously Kazuha can do. There's no healing, but there is grouping, so it's kind of that kind of cross tag between those two characters. Overall though, I think Xilonen holds a lot more usefulness because with Kazuha, you have to worry about a healer, or at least a shielder, some sort of sustain usually. If the DPS cannot heal themselves, then this is what you're going to have to do. But with Xilonen, she takes on the job of healing. So even if your DPS can heal, it makes it even easier and sustainable to actually not have to worry about that specifically as a problem in your specific teams. So she is a buffer and a healer, taking both the buff and sustain role in your teams, therefore allowing the other 3 characters to either be another buffer or 2 or 3 more damage dealers as well. So honestly, I think that's just another reason why Xilonen can go so well. She works well with Geo teams, so she still likes to work with Navia as the other Geo character, and actually still help with Geo resistance shred, while also helping with 4 of the core 4 elements to actually make sure that they're getting buffs as well. So she works and actually wants to work with Geo, yes, not an insane amount, but some Geo characters, and then also she wants to work with the core 4, which opens up so many possibilities for other supports like Furina, or other characters like Yelan, or other characters like DPSs of any of the core 4 like we've talked about in this top little ranking, and even more in the future. Just goes to show that she's pretty much not necessarily future proof, because you never know with these gacha games, but she shows so much helpfulness in this specific aspect. And finally, now the very first character that you should be looking for if they come on a banner, in my opinion, should be a must pull, is going to be Furina. Furina is the other character I really had to struggle with Xilonen. And honestly, I think at the end of the day, the reason why Furina is going to be on a higher podium than Xilonen, I'll go over in a second. Looking at Furina, she slowly drains characters' HP, but she's also a healer at the same time. If you switch her Usia mode into a Numa mode back and forth between those two things, you can get some healing, you can get some personal damage, and you know, obviously draining HP of characters, which works really well with other Fontaine characters, which obviously is very, very good. But at the same time, you're giving them a buff with your burst. So the more HP change you have, the better inside that burst time. So more change, obviously she either heals or does, you know, takes away HP, but also does damage in that phase. She's a high damage dealer, she's a good buffer, and technically she also can heal. Honestly, you couldn't ask anything more out of a specific character, very similar to a character like Mavuika, and specifically the idea of what you want to do. Now, the reason why she could be higher than Mavuika, and even why she is above Xilonen, is because at the end of the day, she can work with the futureness of what's going to be happening with a lot of Cryo. Now, once again, you could totally have these other 2 characters work with Cryo as well. I just mean to say that, especially with a character like Skirk coming out, she can work because she's part of that freeze idea. Same thing with a character with Xilonen is that you can't work in that aspect. Same thing with Mavuika. Can't work in that aspect because you only need Cryo and Hydro characters in the team. Now, the great thing that Mavuika kind of has over the other 2 is she can fit in Overload. The other 2 can't. So it's always a little give and take between the different characters at these top 3, and which is why I think that these 3 characters are going to be very high on the must pull mechanic, really by making sure by looking at the banners, if these characters come by, really do a deep dive on looking at your specific chart and your different characters. Now with these characters, I just wanted to show the few characters that you should really be thinking about as they come up on the banners, and making sure these specific characters are the ones that are going to quote-unquote future-proof your account. Maybe not all the way, but definitely characters that are going to make sure that for now you are done pretty well. Now obviously you're going to need to pull new characters. That's always how the gacha games go. Certain characters are going to fall out of the meta, certain characters are going to be thrown back in. That's just the nature of the game. But hopefully this video has helped you guys understand a little bit more on certain characters before we get into Nod Krai, and even with some of the reruns at the beginning of Nod Krai, who's some characters you should be pulling to make sure that you're set up for what's going to be coming in the future. If you guys did like the video, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Let me know what you guys think down below, maybe some of the characters you think should be added in this video. Go ahead and let me know down in the comments. Thank you guys once again for watching the video though, and I'll see you guys in the next one.